All right, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from StreetScores, man, and I want to dive into all of my main takeaways from that game that we just saw last night, man. Appreciate everybody that pulled up to my birthday live stream. Yes, my birthday happened to be the day that we played the Denver Broncos. It was such a fun stream. Thank y'all for all the birthday wishes, donations, all of that, man. But we're here to dive into everything that went down in that game. Of course, I have a lot of interesting takeaways, some positive, some negative. We're going to dive into different position groups. You know, I like to watch these games, especially for the remainder of this specific season, in the lens of who wants to be great in 2026. Which of these young guys is showing any potential as to, like, they deserve to stay around for next year, they deserve more playing time or more opportunities next year, all kinds of stuff, man. So we're gonna dive into a lot of roster outlook stuff, a lot of coaching stuff. Dan Quinn calling the defensive plays, Cliff Kingsbury's offensive play calling. We got to put respect on Terry, this offensive line, and the optimistic future that I have for the Washington Commanders moving forward. We're going to dive into all of that and more, but before we do, make sure you stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned to all of the content. Appreciate y'all for pulling up and supporting the stream, especially my birthday stream for the Denver Broncos game that went to overtime. It was a really fun game. You got to admit, even the way that it ended, it was a very fun game. Shouts out to my watch to the end game that watches these videos all the way to the end, man. Shouts out to Noti Gang that is on these videos immediately. And then shouts out to my late night crew that even though I'm recording this right now at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time, a lot of y'all will be watching this late night. Appreciate y'all. And let's go ahead and dive into this video right now, man. Let's get it. Adam. And mind you, it's like some of these things are going to be kind of like chronological order. Like as I'm live streaming and doing the play-by-play analysis and breaking down everything during the game, like literally live, I'm writing all of these notes down. Like this is basically just a run through my notes and opinions that happened during the game, and then I also had some additional notes and stats that I found after the game that I want to include as well. So like when we're talking about offense, we're going to go a little bit of chronological order as far as like how the game went for Cliff Kingsbury, both bad and good. Then when we get to like the quarterback, same thing with Mariota, same thing with the running backs, and then the wide receivers, we have a long conversation about the wide receivers we got to get to, and that's going to be in chronological order as well. It's going to be like this play happened, just as a heads up. So it's going to be that way all the way until we get through special teams. Again, this is going to be a position group by position group breakdown, so we're going to talk about D-line, linebackers, safeties, corners, all of that type of stuff, even special teams, receivers, tight ends, offensive line, all of that. Now, again, I want to start with Cliff Kingsbury's play calling. Then after we're done going through all of the offensive position groups, we're going to go through with Dan Quinn's defensive play calling, go all the way through the defense, special teams, and then I have a bunch of other things I want to dive into, like injuries. I want to dive into the refs. I want to dive into a lot of different things, so stay tuned throughout the video. Now let's get to Cliff Kingsbury first. Well, first of all, the first offensive drive was going pretty well to an extent. I mean, it was weird though. It was like a clear strategy of we're trying to dink and dunk. It was 10 plays, 35 yards. We were just trying to make things easier for Marcus Mariota. It ended in a punt, but Grant Paulson brought up a great point that the plan was clearly to get the ball out of Mariota's hands fast. We had a horizontal passing game to get the Denver Broncos running, to kind of tire them out, and also to kind of, space them out a little bit to give us opportunities in the middle, run game, all of that type of stuff. And Mariota was 5 of 6 with just that one throw that he had down the field that was the miss, and Rodriguez had 3 runs with the longest being 11. It was a pretty decent first drive. And when we first got to the third quarter, the beginning of the second half, our very first possession of the third quarter, C-Rod had a 6-yard run, Ertz had an 18-yard catch, Ertz had a 12-yard catch, and then Mariota had a 19-yard run. So like the first play of each half, the first drive of each half, Cliff Kingsbury's script was kind of eating a little bit. And then JP Finley pointed out the fact that the Commanders offense came into the game at some point. I think this was like during the third quarter. He said this: we came into the game converting 36% 57% on third down, and they were 6 of 7 at some point on third down in that game. So, like, we were doing better that way compared to how we've been doing the entire season. And mind you, and I'm going to bring this up several times throughout this video, especially during the offensive part of this is one of the best defenses in the NFL. You ask many people, a lot of people think that this is single-handedly the best defense in the NFL that we were doing. Shouts out to Mike Hall of Burgundy Zone. He said the offensive line is healthy, both top wide receivers out there doing their thing, run game is decent enough, and people don't want Five to come back and build some confidence going forward into 2026. And that's, of course, a very interesting debate topic right there. I just wanted to bring that up. Of course, I'm kind of like Aaron on the, I mean, unless he's 100%, I don't want to see him out there. But then again, if you could convince me that the starting offensive line is all healthy, he has Terry and Debo available, then I can see, like, you know, maybe you want to give Jaden Daniels some reps before we go into 2026. I can see that, but I really don't want to chance him getting hurt. And mostly just because, you know, it's a lot of things going wrong, because even when the offensive line has been good, receivers haven't been able to get open, and a lot of hits he's taken is because he's holding on to the ball too long because receivers aren't open. So if you can promise me that Terry and Debo at least will be healthy by the time Jaden Daniels gets back, then I'm cool with it. And the starting defensive line is healthy, then let's do it. Because it's just it's worth the risk if you're fighting for a playoff spot. You know what I'm saying? If you're fighting to you still have a chance to go compete for a Super Bowl, I don't think it's worth the risk. I know it's the same risk any game that he would go in technically, but to me, it's not worth the risk unless there's something at the end of the tunnel that we can achieve. There's nothing we can achieve in this for the rest of the season other than going in with some pride, some better idea of like what our biggest needs and priorities going into the offseason are, and a higher draft pick, bro. But there's no playoffs, there's no Super Bowl, dog. That's pretty much done. We're not mathematically all the way eliminated just yet. We're gonna talk about that at some point later on in this video. But bro, it's ugly. It's ugly. So again, for me, don't play Jaden unless the entire offensive line is healthy and both Terry and Debo are healthy. Also, Cliff, one of the bad things from this game, you gotta chill with the low probability plays on money downs, dog. I mean, how many times on third down situations, like, gotta have it, we need a first down right now, it is third down, and you're throwing super low probability play calls out there. You're throwing fade routes to the sideline, to the back of the end zone. Like, what is this? Marcus Mariota, you know, shouts out to him. You know, he made a couple of mistakes, but at the end of the day, like, what can you really expect from a backup quarterback? Not only is he a backup quarterback, so that's already like you're not getting a lot of ones reps with the receivers just in general, but then also on top of that, the receivers are even hurt. So how much time has he haven't had to even practice and gain chemistry with these guys to be able to hit on these low probability plays often? So I don't know why he kept taking those risks on third down of all downs. It was really weird. Also, Mariota at some point was overthrowing the ball quite a bit, so Cliff Kingsbury had guys open, was calling good plays, and Mariota was missing them some of the time. But it was kind of like a dance back and forth of Cliff Kingsbury calls the right play, Mariota doesn't necessarily execute it that well. Or Cliff Kingsbury calls an average play or a bad play, Mariota makes the difference to where the play ends up positive. So it's kind of like a dance back and forth of it would either be one of their faults or both of them will be on point. It was like both of them good and bad is the best way to describe it. And then Marcus Mariota going towards the end of that game, once we got in the clutch time of the fourth quarter, bro. I mean, Marcus Mariota, that play call from Cliff Kingsbury to have him run a quarterback design run, what was it, like third down, and then somehow he got out of bounds by running somebody over. Imagine if he didn't get out of bounds on that play. Shouts out to Greg Paulson. He said the stones on that QB draw call by Cliff Kingsbury out there was mind bending. What if Mariota doesn't get out of bounds? Are you able to get your kicking team out there on time to get the snap off? Remind you, we already called our final timeout before the play, but he did get out of bounds and he got a first down, so it ended up being ultimately what looked like a great play call, a very gutsy one. But boy, I mean, imagine if things would have went wrong, how that would have went. And then Cliff called the perfect play to win the game, bro. I mean, such a great design, 2-point conversion. I mean, first of all, don't even skip over all of the great play calls that got us down there to even set us up to score the touchdown and to even attempt the 2-point conversion. Forget all of that. How about just the 2-point conversion alone was a great play call? But at the end of the day, great players make great plays. Shouts out to Nick Benito, because, I mean, now granted, Nick Benito made a great play. Maybe Marcus Mariota he could pump fake the ball, bring it back down after Benito jumped in the air and then was able to complete it. Maybe to Jeremy McNichols to win the game. Maybe he could have done an even better play to counter Nick Benito's great play. But at the end of the day, man, X's and O's wise, Cliff Kingsbury seemed to out-scheme Denver's defensive staff on that 2-point conversion. Jeremy McNichols is wide open. Even Benjamin Albright tweeted about it. He said if Benito doesn't swat the ball, the Broncos lose. McNichols was wide open. Cliff Kingsbury called a great play. And look at it from this angle from Ethan Condoe right here, bro. Like, yo, he's wide open, bro. That is a game-winning play call right there. So tip your hat to Cliff Kingsbury. He called a great game overall. There were a lot of inconsistencies. Again, some of the play calls were very questionable throughout the game. It wasn't a perfect play call game, but how often do people have perfect play call games? But overall, great game. I just don't like the low probability fade route throws on money downs, bro. Third down throwing fade routes is insane. The likelihood of you have converted those very slim, bro. Go with something else. But it's interesting though. Maybe it's a way to set them up to have to be aware of, hey, we will attempt this on third down, you better cover it, which could open things up for the easier plays like running the ball or throwing a short throw, whatever, right at the sticks or something like that. Who knows? But either way, even moving on, again, Benito made a ridiculous play. Literally won the game for the Denver Broncos. That was arguably the entire play of the game. You just got to tip your cap to him, man. And then shouts out to Grant Paulson. He pointed out the fact that the Commanders offense did some really good things last night. 419 yards versus Denver is the second most by any team all year, most since week 2. Ran 85 plays, season high 13 more than any team has run versus Denver all year. 8 of 17 on third down was tied for the best game versus Denver defense this season. 30 first downs was the most by any team has had versus Denver this year. 143 net rushing yards was second best against Denver this year. 276 net passing yards was second best versus Denver this year, best since week 2. Ertz had 13 catches. We're going to talk about him. 13 targets, 10 catches, 106 yards in the best game of the year for him. McLaurin has 7 catches, 96 yards, and a touchdown in his best game of the year. Mariota threw for 294 yards and ran for another 55 against arguably the best defense in the NFL. Cliff Kingsbury cooked, bro. We can definitely nitpick a lot of parts of his play calling and play designs and stuff like that. It was not, again, I'm going to admit it wasn't perfect. But boy, he called himself a game. You can't tell me with backups all around. Traylon Burks, I love his talent. We're going to dive into him. I'm super excited about him. I've been telling y'all since before he was even released by the Titans and then before we even signed him, hey, I would love to bring in Traylon Burks. And then he showed you with that one-hand catch. He deserves to be brought back for 2026. He deserves to be a part of the 2026 Washington Commanders wide receiver corps. So, I love Traylon Burks. But at the end of the day, man, Luke McCaffrey's hurt. Terry McLaurin's first game back in weeks. We're working. Cliff Kingsbury isn't working with the best ensemble of guys right now. Jaden Daniels is not there. It's your backup quarterback, Marcus Mariota, out there throwing unnecessary interceptions in field goal range type of stuff going on. Cliff Kingsbury cooked, y'all. Plain and simple. Also, shouts out to Nikki Javala for pointing out the fact that the Commanders' offensive line was excellent against the top pass rush in the NFL. Per Next Gen Stats, Washington held the Broncos to a 17.9% pressure rate, the Broncos' lowest rate since week 3 of 2023, when they gave up 70 points to the Dolphins. Laramie Tunsil only allowed 2 pressures to Nick Benito in 28 matchups, one of the best sack masters in the entire NFL. Josh Connolly allowed 0 pressures to Jonathan Cooper in 26 matchups, and Samuel Cosmi allowed 1 pressure on 55 pass blocking snaps. Those guys blocked their tails off, bro. And shouts out to Cliff Kingsbury for the play calling to help make things easier for those guys, man. Disco worded it perfectly, man. Cliff Kingsbury moved the ball up and down the field on the best defense in football. Now moving on to Marcus Mariota. Again, we gotta clap it up for what Cliff Kingsbury did in that game last night, man. We just can't skip over that, bro. Now again, Marcus Mariota. Of course, I don't know what that interception was in the beginning of the second quarter, I guess it was, man. I have no idea what he thought he was trying to do on that one. It was just a bad decision. He was trying to create something off schedule, trying to do too much. It was ugly because he easily could have just run it. He had several opportunities to just run with the ball. It's 2nd and 6 too. Like, live to die another down. You know what I'm saying? You're in field goal range, even for a random kicker that you just signed in Jake Moody from the Bears practice squad right before the bye week. Never kicked for us in a game before, but you're still at the 19-yard line. At worst, you take like a 4 or 5 yard sack. You're still in field goal range, and it's only 3rd down. Maybe you still get a first down. Maybe you still score a touchdown. So he could have thrown it away at some point as well. Even if you didn't run, you could have just thrown it out of bounds. I mean, it was just an insanely bad play, man. And I mean, he was pretty on and off in that Madrid game versus the Dolphins as well, especially with the game losing interception in overtime. But I feel like he had a better overall game against Denver, especially considering the defense that he went against. But that was a really bad play. But it was crazy too, because he had the Traylon Burks throw that was perfect, and then his other 2 best throws in the game were dropped for incompletions. Jalen Lane in the first half, and then Zach Ertz when under 4 minutes left in the game, where the linebacker did a great job of getting the ball out of his hands. Those were 3 like elite throws from Marcus Mariota, which goes back to why I feel like Mariota is arguably the best backup quarterback in the NFL, bro. I mean, that throw was absolutely insane. And to me, just the whole experience of Marcus Mariota, he looks real good when he remembers he's Mariota. A backup quarterback, a great backup quarterback, but emphasis on backup quarterback. When he's just going through the Florida offense, being a passenger for Cliff Kingsbury's offense, he does really well, and he can win games for you. There were so many games this year that if our defense wasn't historically bad in those games, especially that Falcons game, just to name a few, we can win those games with Mariota as your quarterback, and that's why he's a great backup quarterback. You don't want to go into week 1 of a season assuming he's your starting quarterback, but if he ever has to step up and play a game for you, he can, and he can win games as long as your defense isn't selling. But when he starts to look bad, when he starts to make mistakes, it seems like is when he gets out of his body and thinks he's Pat Mahomes. That's what it seems like to me. But and then also his deep ball wasn't looking too good. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of power behind his throws right now. I don't know if it's come with age off. I don't know if he's always been, fairly weak armed, but his deep throws aren't that great unless he throws it very early to where it could get there in time. But like if he throws it late, it's not getting there in time. But other than that, no, man, I can't really nitpick him too much. That was an overall great game from him, even though he made some very crucial mistakes, bro. And then also shouts out to Grant Paulson. He said the difference between 2024 and 2025. Mariota hit Terry McLaurin for a 30-yard touchdown to set up a potential game-winning 2-pointer in overtime, negated by a hole by Josh Connolly, who tackled Cooper. I honestly think that was a nitpicky hole right there. But on the next play, Mariota found Debo for 39 yards to move the sticks on 3rd and 14. That is an interesting point right there. Also, speaking of quarterbacks, before we move on to our Washington Commanders running backs, Fox Sports let everybody know that quarterbacks with a rating under 85 this year are combined for 37 wins, 111 losses. Bo Nix is clearly getting carried by his team because he's 5-0 in that situation. That is absolutely insane, bro. That just shows you how elite that defense was that we went up against last night and did what we did to them. I feel like people really need to understand that. Bo Nix is 5-0 when he has a quarterback rating under 85 this year. Every quarterback combined is 37 wins, 111 losses. That shows you how dominant that defense is, how much that defense has been carrying Bo Nix, and it's just even more impressive than Mariota, Cliff Kingsbury, Terry McLaurin, and these guys did what they did against that same very defense. Now, moving on to the running backs, bro. I mean, Chris Rodriguez running his tail off. I remember with right at 8 minutes left in the first quarter, that second effort of breaking some tackles to get a first down on 2nd and 5, that was amazing. He had a few runs like that we could just really dive into, man. I mean, he just does a great job of keeping his feet moving. He's running guys over, bro. Jeremy McNichols is a 3rd down monster, bro. Like, typically he does it in the passing game, but he had this one play where it was like 3rd and long, and then we just handed him the ball, and he broke a couple of tackles, got a bunch of yards after contact, got the first down, bro. He's literally the 3rd and long king on this team right now. I love Chris Rodriguez. I still think Bill has the highest ceiling of any running back in his running back room right now. And again, it's normally through the air, but Jeremy McNichols, you put him out there on 3rd and long, he's going to find a way, it seems like, more times than not. Even Paul Connor tweeted another week, another McNichols apology. I'm sorry. I mean, McNichols just keeps doing it. And then that C-Rod touchdown where he ran a man clean over. Like, when I say ran over, I'm talking about still running, turning the guy into roadkill, didn't fall with him, ran him over, kept going. Like insane run over. And I just love the fact that we were doing that a lot throughout the game. Like Terry McLaurin ran somebody over on I think on his first catch of the game after he got a slant, bro. It was insane, bro. He completely blew through the safety. And then shouts out to Tyler Biadasz. We're going to talk about this later on when we get to the offensive line part of this video. But Tyler Biadasz blocked the center. He helped double team the nose tackle, the defensive tackle, whoever it was, with Chris Paul. Then he got to the next level, blocked the linebacker. That's why Chris Rodriguez had a one-on-one with a safety. And Chris Rodriguez is going to win that more times than not, almost every time. He's going to run that guy over. At the very least, he's going to run him over to the point that he at least leans forward for an extra yard or two. But that time, he ran him clean over for a touchdown. Now, moving on to the wide receivers. Now, shouts out to George Carmi, especially when in the first quarter, I completely agree with this assessment. He said, everything appears difficult for Washington. That is the story of this season. We're fighting for every yard on offense. We lack explosive plays, and it's hard to get off the field on defense. And I agree. But now moving on to the wide receivers specifically, man. I mean, Jalen Lane, now granted it was somewhat of a tough catch, but I mean, the ball got to his hands. Again, like I mentioned earlier briefly, Marcus Mariota had 3 ridiculous throws in this game. Sadly, 2 of them went incomplete. And Jalen Lane, that one in the first half, bro, you got to catch that, man. And so far what I'm seeing, Jalen Lane, I mean, he could get open, but he just can't make tough catches. So you just can't look at him as a contributing wide receiver moving on next year. If he does, if he somehow develops into a dependable hands wide receiver, great. Now he's just an additional wide receiver we have to the room, but I'm not going to depend on him. I'm not going to be like, we shouldn't take a wide receiver in the first round because Jalen Lane is still cooking up. Nah, I'm not giving up on him, but right now I'm looking at Jalen Lane as a potentially great punt returner for now. We'll see about the wide receiver part. But again, Terry McLaurin, for his first catch, bro, that first down off the slant, running somebody over, amazing. And I love the fact that the crowd was chanting, Terry, Terry. And Mariota, I mean, first of all, delivered the throw. And then, but like Mariota, Terry McLaurin, everybody like hyping up the crowd, telling them, keep going, keep going. You know what I'm saying? And then Terry McLaurin, his second catch of the game, put us at the Denver 3 for a 1st and goal. I believe, so that was actually a second catch where he ran somebody over. And then soon after that, Treylon Burks, arguably the catch of the year from the Washington Commanders, arguably the catch of the year of the entire NFL, bro. And it's crazy because we just so happen to have 3 amazing catches all in the same weekend. Brock Bowers, my Georgia dog, I would argue was probably the most impressive one because it was the most unique. But Puka Nacua had a great one as well. And then Treylon Burks had his, bro. One of the best catches of all time by a Commanders player, period. Burgundy and gold player all time. Insane catch. And I mean, this is one of those guys. Put some respect on Terry's name. We're going to talk about how you got to put some respect on offensive line's name. You got to put respect on Cliff Kingsbury's name. And even Dan Quinn as a play caller. Y'all need to put respect on Treylon Burks' name, bro. I've been telling y'all even before we signed him, this guy has a lot of talent that's been lying dormant. There is a reason. I mean, granted, it still wasn't smart at the end of the day. You know, it wasn't even smart necessarily going into it to trade a known commodity in A.J. Brown to the Eagles and assume that you could just draft Treylon Burks with that first round pick you got in return and he was going to be just as good, if not better. Like, that was their assumption. But, I mean, at the end of the day, it's no way he's just terrible. You know, the Titans haven't made a lot of good decisions the last few years just in general. But Treylon Burks is very talented. He just has to stay healthy. And he has to play with decent quarterbacks. You could argue our backup quarterback in Marcus Mariota is better than any quarterback he's played with since he's gotten to the NFL, with Will Levis and all of those guys, the Titans version of Malik Willis, not even the Packers version of my Westlake alum. I mean, all of the quarterbacks he's played with have been horrible. Mariota is literally an upgrade and the best quarterback he's played with and had thrown the ball to him since he's gotten into the NFL. Imagine what he's going to do when he has Jaden Daniels out there. And it was so great too because Jaden was so hype. They showed Jaden Daniels extra hype in the booth after that Treylon Burks catch. Like, ooh, that's going to be somebody I'm throwing to some point later this season and next season. Just to let you know, that was Treylon Burks' first receiving touchdown since week 13 of 2022. And again, one of the best catches I've ever seen from a burgundy and gold player, arguably one of the best catches, if not the best catch in the NFL this season. And then shouts out to Seawall Sports because she's been reporting this for like over a week now. She was talking about how she talked to Treylon Burks about his finger injury versus Detroit, because a lot of people want to label him as injury prone, but mind you, the main injury that he was recovering from Tennessee was like a broken collarbone. That can happen to anybody. And then you know, everybody was hyped because like, oh, Treylon Burks is finally playing. And then he gets hurt immediately afterwards, and people are like, oh, that's who he is. He's Noah Brown. He's injury prone. No, because his finger injury versus Detroit was very circumstantial. This could have happened to anybody. I'm not labeling him injury prone for the fact that his finger got caught in a cornerback's helmet / face mask, and his finger literally broke in half, and he still caught the ball. So, hey, shouts out to Seawall Sports for that insider information on the whole Treylon Burks injury, and the fact that he went out there and still caught that pass like that was absolutely insane. I mean, that's just crazy, bro. And then everybody was even tweeting about it too. Like, everybody was like, yo, that even Ian Rappaport, he even posted a picture of the catch and the fact that he still has a wrap on his finger right now, a cast on his finger, and he said that Treylon Burks had surgery to repair a spiral fracture on his middle finger just 14 days ago, and now use that same finger to help secure this insane catch. Who has better hands on our team than that Treylon Burks catch right now? I love Debo. I even love Terry. But Treylon Burks is the only receiver on our roster that can make that catch, I would argue. I mean, honestly. And, of course, you had all of the Odell Beckham catch references. And even Odell tweeted about it and said 13 on Twitter. Because Treylon Burks happens to wear the same number 13 that Odell does. So it was just perfect. And shouts out to Odell Beckham for even seeing that catch and acknowledging it as well. And being like, yeah, man, he went crazy. And again, I just want to emphasize, Treylon Burks is not injury prone, but Noah Brown is. There's an important distinction there. And also, Treylon Burks is way younger. Treylon Burks is more talented coming out of college. He was a first-round pick and believed to be a better, more agile version of A.J. Brown coming out of college for a reason. I don't think he's ever necessarily going to live up to his first-round pick potential. We'll see. But he's definitely somebody that should be a part of the Commanders' 2026 wide receiver core moving forward. Jaden Daniels should definitely be throwing passes to a guy like that in the end zone. He's our tallest receiver. He's our best contested catch, one-handed catch type of receiver. I trust Terry McLaurin more so catch-wise in like getting blown up. Like on a slant, somebody's going to hit him in the back extra hard as he's catching it. I trust Terry to make those catches, or like diving catches to the ground. I trust Terry there more. But if you're just throwing it in the corner of the end zone, red zone type of thing, and you just expect somebody to catch it in the end zone on a contested fade route type of thing, that's where Treylon Burks has the best hands on this team, in my opinion. So we'll see. I mean, we still may take a receiver round one. Who knows? But Treylon Burks should be a part of the conversation next year. Also, I think we probably should have gotten a flag for that Terry McLaurin deep bomb attempt where like Pratt Surtain was holding his jersey and stuff like that. But I don't really care. But either way, shouts out to Damian Bartnick. He said, we aren't winning this game, but hey, to everybody's surprise, we had a chance to at the end. But I'll tell you what I feel a lot better about, and that's options at wide receiver with the healthy Terry McLaurin and Treylon Burks' ability to make that play in the red zone, bro. This is something that we can work on. This is something we can definitely build on in the future, bro. Again, I feel like that flag that should have gone on Terry. I agree with my boy Ed Oliver that I feel like if that were George Pickens, they would have called it. But I feel like they looked at us like the 3-8 Commanders versus the 9-2 Denver Broncos. Terry just got back. It's a down season for everybody. We're not going to throw that flag against the best corner in football. I feel like George Pickens, that exact same scenario, the refs called that flag, but that's just how it is. Also, Deebo Samuel was not doing a great job of getting really open until like that last drive of the game, but he still made some plays. To me, I would love to bring Deebo back next year. Problem is, I think he's going to outprice himself. I just, and I like Deebo, but he's not a true wide receiver too. He's a weapon too, arguably, but I feel like you could still, even if you do somehow bring Deebo back, Terry McLaurin's healthy, you have Treylon Burks. I don't think that stops you from taking receiver in the first round, but still, I'm just so happy to see Terry hoop, bro. Terry, his fourth catch of the game was beautiful as well, and he was on snap count. Like, he was limited in snaps, and he was just out there. The occasional times he was out there, he was giving Pat Surtain work, man. His fourth catch of the day with 4 minutes 40 seconds left in the fourth quarter got wide open against Pat Surtain after tripping on the play as well, bro. And then he had that catch for a touchdown, but ended up being called back by Josh Connolly. Everybody was let down. Again, I feel like that was a nitpicky call by the refs. And then immediately after that, Deebo Samuel, 3rd and 14, gets open down the field on the right side to get a first down on 3rd and 14 to set us up to potentially tie or win the game. And then a couple of plays after that, 4th and goal, Terry McLaurin slant right in the middle of the end zone throw from Marcus Mariota. It was like a good crossing route to where we had one receiver take a corner to the outside, started inside from the slot to the outside. Terry McLaurin start from the outside, go to the inside, got open, great catch. I mean, Terry McLaurin, again, the most dependable hands. I would say, Traylon Burks has the best hands as far as like literal hands, one-handed catch. But Terry, if you need a money play, it's 4th and goal, you need a touchdown, throw it to Terry every time, bro. That overtime catch was so clutch, man. Shouts out to Mariota for the throw. And I do want to point out the fact that Terry McLaurin's first game back in like over a month from injury, 7 receptions on 14 targets. And I just love the fact that he had so many targets. Thank you, Cliff. Thank you, Mariota. Throw the ball to your best receiver. He showed you why he was the best receiver on the team. He had 96 yards and a touchdown. Best game of the season by far. And I want to remind y'all that was against Pat Surtain, the best corner in all of football. The guy that won Defensive Player of the Year as a corner, not an edge rusher, as a corner Defensive Player of the Year. He's that good, bro. Same thing, though. Remember a few years ago with Stephon Gilmore, after winning Defensive Player of the Year as a corner, Terry was giving him the business. There's no corner in the NFL that can cover Terry one-on-one. And that's true wide receiver 1 quality right there. Now, granted, technically, Terry only caught 3 of his 8 targets for 30 yards against Pat Surtain, including a touchdown in overtime. But Terry was open a lot more than that. There was some flags that I felt like should have been called against Pat Surtain, and even sometimes when Terry got open, but Mariota didn't get the ball to him for whatever reason. But also, I mean, even like on one of those passing charts, Terry has like this one squiggly line where he had Pat Surtain beat by at least 3 yards going down the field. Again, one of those plays where Mariota didn't attempt to throw the ball to Terry McLaurin, but he could have beat Pat Surtain for like a 70-yard deep bomb touchdown on that play type of thing. So Terry was giving Pat Surtain the business. Don't just look at the stats. Actually watch the tape. Terry whooped up on Pat Surtain in that game. Again, finished with 7 catches for 96 yards and a touchdown. And I agree with Tom Shad. The stats almost understate his impact on the game, bro. Dan Quinn even said after the game, you can feel Terry McLaurin's presence on the game. And again, don't watch just the box score. Don't be a box score watcher. Actually watch the tape. Terry was cooking Pat Surtain. And shouts out to Damian Bartonek. He said, legit, I've seen tweets from the Commanders fans saying we need a true wide receiver 1 as if McLaurin didn't stack 5 straight 1,000-yard seasons and didn't legit break the franchise single season touchdown record for wide receivers not even 12 months ago. He said, I think they need another wide receiver, but this whole idea they need a true wide receiver 1 isn't even laughable. It's sad. It's sad to think one weird, uncommon, rare injury somehow means the franchise best receiver since probably Art Monk is now no longer a true wide receiver 1 because he got hurt for the first time in his NFL career. Now, granted, I understand why some people feel like, oh, now he's suddenly 30 years old. Now he suddenly get hurt. I can see that. And I still agree with, hey, if you want Carnell Tate in the first round, take him. But yes, Terry McLaurin still is a true wide receiver 1. I think we're somewhere in the middle here where some people are overreacting too far either way. But again, there is a worry with the fact that he's 30 years old and now suddenly he is 30. Suddenly now he's hurt for the first time in his NFL career. But he showed you in that game, even on snap count, and then he went out there and balled out, bro. I mean, shouts out to Grant Paulson. I agree. He said Terry McLaurin is a complete game changer for the Commanders. His lost time this year has to have been the most crippling part of this season going the way that it did, other than Jaden Daniels being out. Again, injuries killed this season more than anything else. I'm going to tell y'all that forever. But shouts out to Jared NFL 89. He said Terry had the best game a receiver has had for us this entire season against the best corner in football. For those of you who don't think that he makes a difference, I completely agree. Also, shouts out to Burger Manders. He said maybe it's because we haven't had an elite wide receiver this year play as far as like guys that have been available. But Terry looks even better than before. And it kind of felt like that again with the competition that he had to go up against, with it being the best corner in football, and for him to look that good. I don't know. Terry did look better than even I hoped he would look. I mean, it was absolutely insane, but it's probably just because, again, we just haven't seen Terry McLaurin at his best. We haven't seen a lot of great wide receiver play throughout the season just in general. So that's probably what it is. But also, Terry McLaurin cooked the best corner in football, literally cooked them and won that matchup easily. So Terry McLaurin is that guy. And then Terry McLaurin even talked after the game and said that he was on a rep count of around like 25 plays, but he blew past that. He said, quote, in my mind, I knew if the game was close, screw that rep count. unquote. I thank you, Terry. I love that mentality, and I'm so happy that you were out there as much as you were. And the fact that you came away virtually unscathed and finally can probably put together 2 games in a row for the Commanders this year, I'm super excited about Terry being back, man. Also, now moving on to the tight ends, Zach Ertz with his first catch of the game had 816 receptions at that point, surpassed Shannon Sharp with 815 receptions for 5th all-time receptions by a tight end in NFL history. Then he had another big catch, and he at a certain point had 5 grabs for 63 yards, bro. He was cooking, bro. He was like the most dependable target on third downs. He still had a lot of no yak Zach moments where it's like, bro, are you just allergic to getting first downs type of thing? But I mean, yeah, he was doing his thing, bro. And I mean, Cliff had Mariota throwing the ball to Zach Ertz like he was CeeDee Lamb. I mean, every situation possible, even on screens, design plays where pre-snap we're knowing that we're throwing it to Zach Ertz, and then plays where Marcus Mariota's going through his progressions and his reads, throws it to Zach Ertz, bro. And then shouts out to Linnell Willingham. He brings up an interesting point that may like change my mind from how I originally felt about Zach Ertz. He said, you know, I'd like to bring Zach Ertz back. Ben Sinnott isn't a receiving threat, clearly. I don't know. Maybe Cliff Kingsbury is just allergic to throwing the ball to Ben Sinnott. You have so many other needs ahead of tight end, edge rusher, you can argue wide receiver, corner, safety, all kinds of things. Why not bring him back for the cheap again? I feel like until this game where he just balled out against the Broncos, again, arguably the best defense in football, I was feeling like, man, I don't know, man. I mean, the false starts, the mistakes he was making, and a lot of it just looks like age. It looks like he doesn't even have the same balance. He's dropping passes every now and then. I was pretty much done with the thought of Zach Ertz in 2026, but I don't know, man. Maybe I would still love to address tight end. I would still please go get Kyle Pitts in free agency, but you may need to bring back Zach Ertz on a super cheap 1-year deal just in case. But again, going back to Ben Sinnott, does Cliff Kingsbury hate Ben Sinnott? I mean, there were like 3 throws to John Bates and even 1 throw to Colson Yankoff. And then there were like 10 to Zach Ertz. Ben Sinnott, the only one not getting the ball out of the tight ends. What happens, bro? But again, Zach Ertz still, I mean, he's just the king of falling 1 foot short of the first down, bro. I just don't understand how he does it. But man, he was coming up clutch. Like, I mean, 52 seconds left, 4th and 6. Zach Ertz is the one that converts the first down for us, man. Like when we needed it most, he made those catches and made those plays. He had 2 big drops. Technically, one of them was like a drop where the guy, you know, got the ball out of his hands. But Zach Ertz balled out, bro. 10 catches, 106 yards. He balled, bro. You know, no matter how you look at it, he balled out. Now moving on to the offensive line before we get to the defensive side of the ball, starting with Dan Quinn's defensive play calling. Offensive line wise, man. So first of all, Laramie Tunsil, when there was that whole fight about to break out, and then I think it was Nick Benito, somebody on the Denver Broncos team ended up getting called for a flag. Laramie Tunsil completely deboed somebody onto the ground, like launched them, like a bouncer out of the club type of thing. I love the fact that Laramie Tunsil was like literally our Debo of the team, our enforcer. I mean, he is bald, so, you know, it kind of fits him either way. But also, again, like I mentioned earlier, Chris Rodriguez's touchdown run where he ran over a safety, Tyler Biadasz, you know, and it was like a couple of plays before that, or the play right before that, we had a poor block where Mariota ended up getting tackled in the backfield because of Tyler Biadasz's poor block. And then in the next play, couple of plays after that or whatever, he blocks 2 Broncos defenders, the D tackle with Chris Paul. Then he goes up and climbs to the linebacker level, blocks him, and then Chris Rodriguez only has to run over a safety for a touchdown because of Tyler Biadasz's blocking. And then shouts out to Jamal Montelli because he brought up a great point. Throughout the game, it looked like Laramie Tunsil was moving early a lot of plays, and then they finally called him for a false start at some point. So it was kind of like, yeah, it was only but so long that you would be able to get away with that and not get called for it. Like at some point, they were gonna have to call you for that. I ain't gonna lie, it was inevitable. Also, going back to the point that I brought up earlier from Nikki Javala, Washington held the Broncos to a 17.9% pressure rate, the Broncos' lowest since week 3 of 2023 in a game that they gave up 70 points to the Dolphins, bro. And Pro Football Focus's highest graded commanders from week 13. That's both offense and defense. Samuel Cosmi leads the pack by far with a 91.4. Then it's Jordan McGee second with a 79.7. That has me super happy. The Jordan McGee part, bro. Because again, my main thing for the rest of the season, I know the season's ugly, but like I'm looking at, which one of you young guys wants to be a part of a winning culture and wants to play more next year? Who wants more opportunities? Who wants to start? Who wants to be a part of a winning team? Who wants to be a part of this revenge tour that we're about to go on next year once we're healthy? Jaden Daniels, the offseason that we have, free agency draft. We're coming back for a vengeance, trying to go back to the NFC Championship game. Which young guys want to be a part of that? Traylon Burks looks like he wants to be. Jordan McGee looks like he wants to be. It's a lot of young guys out here that look like, hey, they should be here not only in 2026, but they should play more. They should arguably start in 2026. So I'm happy about that. Terry was third with a 78.5. Josh Connolly fourth with a 76.9. Laramie Tunsil fifth with a 75.4. I told y'all, our offensive line has been the best position group consistently this season. I don't think that it's any coincidence also that our offensive line has been the healthiest position group on the team. So they have to be the leaders of this team right now, because you're the only position group that's been healthy pretty much all year, especially since after Samuel Cosmi got back from his injury after tearing his ACL all the way back in January versus the the Detroit Lions in the divisional round. So Samuel Cosmi didn't join us until mid-season, like week 5 or 6 or something like that. But since then, our offensive line has been the only consistently healthy part of our entire team, bro. We've had injuries at running back. Don't forget, Austin Eckler was supposed to be RB1 this season, y'all. We've had injuries at wide receiver. Don't even get me started there. Don't get me started on quarterback. Don't get me started on edge rusher, where your top 3 guys are all hurt for the entire season, one of them being 5th in the NFL in sacks before we lost them to the end of the season. You know, your 2 starting corners are Trey Amos, Lattimore out. Will Harris was gone the majority middle chunk of this season. Your best safety, he was better than Quan Martin before he got hurt. That's why you even brought Darnell Savage over. You know, I mean, linebacker, everything. We've had injuries everywhere all season. The offensive line has been the only consistent part of this team. So there's no surprise that out of the top 5 highest graded guys from that surprising Denver Broncos close game, 3 of them are offensive linemen. And most notably, shouts out to Josh Connolly, the rookie right tackle that a lot of fans were getting on and giving up on. I told y'all, I've been saying it since the day we drafted him back in late April. Matter of fact, even before we drafted him, I did a mock draft predicting we would draft him. And I told y'all, he's young. He's coming out of the draft a year early. Scouts kept saying that he should probably go back for one more year, and if he does, he could come out of Oregon and be a top 5 pick in the 2026 draft. That's the talent, but that's also the youth right there. That's also a little bit of rawness to his game. He needs to pick up more strength. So there's no surprise that he had an ugly start to the season, especially with the gauntlet of edge rushers he had to go against. Remember, Giants, Abdul Carter and Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau. Packers, Micah Parsons. Like, how unlucky is that for Josh Connolly? Week 2, Micah Parsons gets traded to the Packers right before the season starts. Raiders, Max Crosby. Falcons, an ensemble of edge rushers. You see Jalen Carter and the Tennessee Volunteers kid, James, I can't remember his name right now. James Pierce, and Leonard Floyd. That combination of edge rushers hooping. He had to go against that. And then the Chargers, you know, that was his first kind of like, take a day off. Not a day off because everybody's NFL professionals, but that was the first time it took till week 5 for him to stop going against premier edge rushers, or at least a premier edge rushing, you know, unit. Because by then Khalil Mack was hurt that game. But I mean, I told y'all it's gonna take time. It's gonna be ugly in the beginning, but he's gonna keep getting better and better and better. And then going against one of the best defense. I mean, I feel like the best defense in the NFL, one of the best pass rush defensive lines in the NFL, and he balled out. Again, mind you, like I told y'all earlier, I think he only surrendered with 2 pressures or something like that. I think he had 2 pressures the entire game. Let me make sure. Let me go get the Nicky Javalis stat again. No, he allowed 0 pressures. Laramie Tunsil had 2 pressures to Nick Benito, which is elite Pro Bowl worthy right there. Josh Connolly allowed 0 pressures to Jonathan Cooper in 26 matchups, bro. And again, he was our 4th highest graded player out of everybody on the Commanders, offense, defense, special teams against the Denver Broncos, bro. I'm telling you, he's only going to get better, and he's starting to string together weeks. He's had solid games back to back weeks. He did have that one holding call. I felt it was a nitpick, but even outside of that, he hoops, bro. And I want to remind y'all, speaking of him being young, he turns 22. He just turned 22 in November, bro. He's 22 years old, bro. He has such a great, bright future ahead of him. But before we move on to the defensive side of the ball, shouts out to Sleeper, man. And with them, you have a chance to 1,000 times your cash with daily fantasy football. And, man, Washington football just showed you that they can still be fun and exciting, even though the season's going ugly. Again, I'm going to blame injuries by far for the biggest reason why this season went the way that it did. But you see that when we finally get some guys back like Terry McLaurin, we can hoop, and at the very least, we can be very entertaining, and most importantly, we can be competitive. So you can pick on stats for stars like Terry McLaurin now that he's back, Debo. Maybe we'll start getting Bill active. You see Chris Rodriguez running people over for touchdowns. You can pick on stats for these stars like touchdowns, passing yards, receiving yards, fantasy points, and more for up to, again, 1,000 times your payout on Sleeper. That means you can put down $1 and end up winning 1,000, bro. And right now, new users that you can see on the screen right now can even get a free $20 without a deposit on top of the already 100% match up to $100 on your first deposit using promo code SCORE. That's SCORE. Or you can just click the link at the top of the description of this video and every video on live stream I'm doing all season. And just in case if you don't know about combo play, even if you miss, if you want to flex, like my boy Ed Oliver, he likes to flex it. Even if you miss on one of your picks, you can still end up winning some good money. Again, shouts out to Sleeper. With them you can 1,000 times your cash. Now let's get back to this video. Let's talk about this defensive play calling from Dan Quinn today, man. And it wasn't all great, but at the end of the day, put some respect on Dan Quinn as a defensive play caller, man. Especially with all of the injuries that we have, he deserves a lot of credit for what he accomplished. Dan Quinn called his tail off, bro. I don't think y'all understand how banged up we are. Again, any team that's missing their top 3 edge rushers, let me know what they can accomplish defensively. On top of that, you're missing Trey Amos, your second-round pick that was playing like the best corner in the team. Marshall Lattimore used to be a perennial Pro Bowler. He didn't necessarily play like that for us this year, except for that Kansas City Chiefs game. I feel like that was the only... Was it the Kansas City Chiefs game where he finally looked like really good? He's one of our highest-graded players and everything. He finally looked like the guy that we traded for. Then he gets hurt soon after that. So you're missing your top 2 corners. Mike Sanford still is transitioning back to being outside after being inside all year. I mean, Bobby Wagner is a shell of himself. Anytime he has to cover anybody, it's cooked. You know what I'm saying? So Dan Quinn, I feel like, again, my point is Joe Wood Jr. didn't have a lot to work with, but Joe Wood Jr. also didn't do a great job of using what he had. Dan Quinn is showing you that, yes, this defensive talent is very void right now. Most of it due to injury, also some of it with Ron Rivera missing out on a lot of first-round picks that should be in their prime right now. Like Jamin Davis, Chase Young, and all of those guys should be in their primes right now. Guys that we missed on with bad selections. Even guys in the second for Darian Mathis. Like, these are guys that should literally be in their prime and should be starters for this defense. So Ron Rivera set us back. Then we've also, I'm not going to say missed on some picks, but right now that maybe, hopefully, optimistically, they're late bloomers. Like Johnny Newton, we'll see. Mike Sanders still took somewhat of a step back until this game. He looked good back outside again. But like, we missed on some, I'm not gonna say miss because it's too early to say miss, but even Adam Peterson and company, they haven't set this defense up to be as great as possible. So that's just already, when healthy, what our defense looks like. Then again, your top 3 edge rushers are hurt, bro. I don't think y'all understand what defense in the NFL can survive their top 3 edge rushers being hurt, especially with one of them being 5th in the NFL in sacks before you lose them for the rest of the season, and Dorrance Armstrong, bro. What defense can survive that? So again, Joe Wood Jr. didn't have a lot of greatness to work with, but at the same time, Dan Quinn coming in and doing play calling for the defense, the Dolphins and the Broncos game shows you that there is a difference between Joe Wood Jr., what he can do with a bad deck of cards, compared to what another defensive coordinator could do with a bad deck of cards, which is why I still want to get a new defensive coordinator this upcoming offseason. But again, Dan Quinn is showing you that if he takes over play calling duties, he's at least better at it than Joe Wood Jr. But now, granted, to start the game, the Broncos were the 10th team to score in their first possession against Washington this season. Now, granted, it was a field goal, it wasn't even a touchdown, so that's improvement. But Commanders defense got off the field with a rare 3-and-out on the second series of the game. First down was a throwaway. They covered really well on the boot. Second down, Eddie Goldman stuffed the run for 1 yard. I told y'all before the season started, Eddie Goldman was going to be an important part of his defense, and you can see that one game he got hurt. I think it was against the Chicago Bears. I think he ended up not playing or something like that. We couldn't stop the run to save our lives. Then third down, Bo Nix missed a wide open wide receiver, checked it down. Nice tackle by Noah Benogany. We'll take it. Defense, you know what I'm saying? Got to stop on the second series. You know what I'm saying? We forced a punt in the first quarter. I didn't even know that was legal. I didn't know we were allowed to physically do that. You know what I'm saying? So I was happy about that already. But then, you had the moments where, like, 4th and 1, we allowed a 22-yard first down to a tight end, all kinds of missed tackles and things like that. And then, I mean, again, it kind of feels like no matter, you could bring in the smartest defensive coordinator, even Mike McDonald over there from the Seahawks, you could bring him in. or the Eagles defensive coordinator, you can bring those guys in, and it's only but so much. There's a certain limit, a certain ceiling you can get out of the defensive talent that we have available, whether it be due to poor decisions in the offseason and the injuries that we sustained during the season. You know what I'm saying? But hey, again, Dan Quinn made the most of what he had compared to what, you know, what Joe Wood Jr. was working with. I mean, classic 2025 Commanders defense, though. Bend and break. There was a certain point in that game in the middle, like the beginning they started well, the end they kind of ended well, but there was somewhere in that middle where they were playing bend and break defense. Not bend but don't break, bend and break, bro. And to my point about the lack of talent, what can you do with this, whether you're Joe Wood Jr. or even Dan Quinn? We run zone, it doesn't work. You run man, it doesn't work. It was just ugly, bro. We need talent more than anything else. But I would like an upgraded defensive coordinator. Still don't get me wrong there. But man, I mean, if we could at some point get both the offense and defense playing well at the same time, I mean, it would be lovely, because we can't get a defensive stop, then score an defensive touchdown, and then get another defensive stop right afterwards. I don't remember the last time we scored twice in a row this past season, bro. I mean, this season up to this point, bro. Probably since like the Chargers game or something, like maybe the Bears game. I don't know, but it's just been ugly. But actually, Nicky Jhabvala at some point, I think during the third quarter, tweeted about the fact that the Commanders had the best red zone defense since week 11 out of the entire NFL, and it kind of felt like it in that game at times as well, forcing some timely field goals. And also, shouts out to Chris Collingsworth. He dropped a nugget about how Washington's players hit the jug machines this week because Bo Nix throws line drives so often. And then the very next play after Chris Collingsworth said that, Bobby Wagner got a pick on Bo Nix. So shouts out to Chris Collingsworth for pretty much, kind of predicting almost that would happen. But man, we were getting killed underneath all game, bro. I mean, especially on third downs. Third and long, 2-yard throw, 10 plus first down catch and run. Third and long, 5-yard throw, 10 plus yard first down catch and run. So I was like, yo, if you could just figure that one out, Dan Quinn, we might be all right. And it seemed like as the game went on, he kind of figured it out, bro. But at some point in the fourth quarter, they did a great job of getting off the field. Three drives into the fourth quarter defensively, 5 plays, 19 yards, interception, Bobby Wagner on Bo Nix. Then the next possession, 3 plays, 1-yard punt. Next possession, 7 plays, 33 yards, punt, bro. Defense started to clutch up in the fourth quarter, bro. They really did. And then with 3 minutes left, bro, Dan Quinn called an insanely good play to force a punt by the Broncos on 3rd and 4. Dan Quinn had Jacob Martin pretend like he was going to be a part of a 4-man rush, but then he went back into coverage and immediately went to go hit Cortland Sutton during his route before 5 yards, so it would not be illegal contact. It was within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage, and then Bo Nix basically short-circuited, didn't know where to throw the ball because he assumed pre-snap that's where he was going with the ball. He threw it to Sutton's direction, threw it to where Sutton was supposed to be, but he wasn't there yet because of the elite play call from Dan Quinn right there. So Dan Quinn showed you what he could do. And then shouts out to my boy Mark Bullock. He went ahead earlier today, December 1st at 3 p.m., did an entire article with all 22 films, subscribe to his Substack, breaking down how Dan Quinn did an excellent job with his defensive play calling versus Denver. Not only did he show the ability to disguise a variety of zone coverages, but he paired certain coverages well to confuse the Broncos' young quarterback. Again, he broke it all down with all 22 that he literally shows you, bro. So Dan Quinn, hell of a game, man. And then also, according to True Media, Washington played 10 snaps of man coverage Sunday night. That gives them 15 snaps of man in the last 2 games total. They averaged 17 snaps per game the first 10 weeks. Some can be a function of losing your 2 press man corners at Amos and Lattimore, which the defense ultimately they want to do. But without Amos and Lattimore, you have to play more zone, and for some reason the zone coverage has worked better. George Carmi even said noticeable difference. Players seem more comfortable and played much faster in that zone defense more than the man. We'll see. Defensive line wise, man, Payne had some great plays. Johnny Newton was involved a little bit more than I expected. This was probably one of his better games. He's had a pretty bad season overall, but he had he had a pretty decent flashes at times in that game. Eddie Goldman has some true run stops. I was proud of that. Then linebacker-wise, Bobby Wagner, the interception. Now, granted, Bo Nix threw it right to him because he didn't see him, but, shouts out to Bobby Wagner for getting the interception at this age. Then Frankie Louvu, man, that third down sack that he got, bro, that was insane, bro. That was and it was great timing as well, but it was the fact that it was like a stunt. He had the loop around. Shouts out to the coverage, too, because Bo Nix was running around for like 7 seconds. That was a coverage sack, but shouts out to Frankie Louvu for being relentless at getting there. Now, of course, Once we got to the fourth quarter, the clutch time, the Denver Broncos did a good job of targeting Bobby Wagner in coverage. It was just back-to-back-to-back plays. Whoever Bobby Wagner's covering, that's who we're going to throw the ball to. And it started to get really ugly for us, bro. People were saying that Bobby Wagner needs to become an analyst at that point. But Bobby Wagner held it down. He's of course, lost a step. He's not the Hall of Famer that he used to be. He's not in his prime. But he has some clutch run stops, and at least he caught the interception that went to his chest. But most importantly, linebacker-wise, Jordan McGee, again, our second highest graded player by Pro Football Focus in that game. He made a fair share of mistakes, but like I keep preaching to y'all, let these young guys play. Traylon Burks, Jalen Lane, all of the young guys at wide receiver, even bring some of the practice squad guys up. Why not? You know, Ben Sinnen at tight end, Kosa Yonkov at tight end. At corner, let the young guys go ahead and rotate in. Linebacker, Jordan McGee, Kane Madrano. I want to see all these young guys play more. They're going to make mistakes, but my point is, I'm going to keep saying this quote that I came up with. Let these guys make mistakes on their way to making plays. And over time, they're going to make more plays than they make mistakes. Jordan McGee is a prime example of that, where just a few weeks ago when he first started getting thrown into the starting lineup, it was a little ugly. But over time, he's gotten better, and better. And now he looks like, arguably, according to Pro Football Focus, the second best player on the entire team in the game, bro. Jordan McGee's 2026 campaign is going to be great. We just need to get another linebacker to pair with him with some great speed and instincts. You know, I would love my Georgia dog CJ Allen, but we'll see. We don't have a second round pick, and I think that's where he's going to end up going, maybe late first. We'll see. But either way, moving on to corners, Mike Sanford still back to the outside was hooping, bro. He had a couple of big hit sticks on the sideline. He's the type of guy that, you know, slot corner is a tougher job than outside corner, especially now that teams finally put their best receivers at slot corner sometimes. You know, the only thing with outside corner was you're typically going against the team's best and most athletic wide receiver. Now, in the current NFL, a lot of teams put their best receivers at slot corner anyway, and then naturally, if it's the same wide receiver and he's in the slot or the outside, it's harder to cover him in the slot because now you have to cover him everywhere. But on the outside, you have the sideline helping. You only have to cover him technically one side of him, and then, you know, the out of bounds is like an additional defender for you technically. So covering guys in the slot is harder. Mike Sanford still has struggled with that. Now moving back outside, he was hooping. And Mike Sanford still, shouts out to Deuce Red Zone for pointing out the fact that Mike Sanford still gave up the least yards, 22, and the lowest yards after catch, 5.5, that he's given up all season since week 1. And I don't think it's any coincidence that this is his first game being a full-blown starter at outside corner, bro. It may be something there. Shouts out to Noah Benogany. He was inconsistent, but he made some good plays throughout the game as well. And I want to remind y'all, Noah Benogany is way younger than you think. First of all, I want y'all to remember that Noah Benogany is a first-round pick. Like, don't forget that Noah Benogany is a former first-round pick, and he is only 26 years old, bro. So this is a guy that you can also be evaluating for the rest of the season. Like, hey, he may not necessarily be a starter for this secondary, this cornerback group moving forward, but he should definitely be a part of the equation, bro. 26 years old, former first round pick. Keep giving him playing time as well to see if he can continue to get better and develop, and maybe he's a guy that should be a part of our future secondary moving on 2026 and beyond. Now moving on to special teams, we had an interesting situation here because, I mean, we could have attempted a 55-yard field goal, but we decided to punt with Tress Way because we have Jake Moody, who we signed off the Bears practice squad just right before the bye week. You know what I'm saying? He wasn't even here for the Dolphins game. We signed him during the bye week, and this was his first game kicking for us. So also with a new long snapper, because our Pro Bowl long snapper Tyler Ott was hurt coming into this game, so we had a random off the street long snapper that we signed. We had a random kicker that we signed during the bye week, and we had to go out there with them. So we ended up having to punt sometimes that maybe you attempt the field goal if you have a kicker that you trust. But we were making extra points. We made every kick. Now, granted, every kick was less than 40 yards, 38 yarders and stuff like that. But Jake Moody was making his kick. So, hey, he'll survive another week. We'll see what happens. And then now moving on to the last few things that I want to discuss. First of all, injuries. We came into the game with Jaden Daniels inactive, of course. Darnell Savage was inactive. That was because Will Harris came back healthy. Ale Cajo, inactive, of course, dealing with concussions. And also, they just prefer to throw Kane Madrano out there. And I want to go look at the All-22 because all of this that I'm giving y'all is my live reaction from watching the game live and looking at some highlights. But I haven't had a chance to watch the All-22. Kane Madrano was active in this game. I want to know what he did, both as a linebacker or special teams, whichever one he played. If it's a mix of both, I want to see what happened. But Ale Cajo didn't play. Talad, of course, your Pro Bowl starting long snapper, hurt, didn't play. Trent Scott, George Fant, always out. But Jalen Holmes, they chose to go with the international pathway player that was playing rugby just last year, this time last year playing rugby, still very raw, coming to America. TJ, I forget how to pronounce his last name, Magrunyanga, I hope that's how you pronounce it, but we chose to bring him up off of the practice squad and play him, and I think I saw him a couple of times out there. I might have to go look at the All-22 to see what he did, but it was interesting that he was out there. I think Drake Jackson made his debut as well. Again, Will Harris made his debut, and at some point in that game, Percy Butler ended up being evaluated for a concussion and was questionable to return. Outside of that, I think we came away roughly unscathed. And now we have to address the refs too. Before we get up out of here, bro, and I have a few more things I want to talk about. We can't skip past the refs, bro. I mean, just insane, bro. I mean, the fact that like that whole situation where they ended up reviewing the play, and they could review the fact that Mariota was down, but couldn't review the fact that it was a flag that he got tripped and that's how he was down. Like an illegal trip downed Mariota, but you can review the down, but you can't review the trip that caused it. Like you could just cheat at that point. Just go ahead and cheat. So the refs showed their tails that time. And then even it got so bad, even Skip Bayless was upset for us. He said, "What are the refs doing to Washington?" All caps too. Mistripping. Motion that wasn't motion. Grounding that wasn't grounding, bro. I mean, yo, that phantom motion false start penalty on Terry McLaurin was insane. If you go back and look at it, Terry is standing perfectly still before the ball is snapped, bro. Standing perfectly still, clearly, like for almost a full second, and they just called a phantom false start, bro. Even the broadcast disagree with the refs, and you rarely hear like the guys in the booth, like the commentators, the lead ref guy saying, "Yeah, I didn't like that call at all, bro." I mean, it cost us 10 seconds and 5 yards because it was a run off of the clock, bro. We were literally playing against the refs at some point in that game. Forget the Denver Broncos, it was the Commanders versus the refs. I mean, even like, and then the intentional grounding. NBC rules analyst Terry McAuley, who's like he's the ref guy for the commentators. You can hear him over the broadcast, all of us watching through the TV and stuff like that. He even, with the grounding call, he said, quote, "This is absolutely not grounding, guys." And the ref still called it. Like, it's really rare to see like even the guys on the broadcast disagree with what the refs are doing. Typically, they try to make up an excuse like, "Oh, well, maybe they thought of it." No, he was like straight up, "Nah, the refs are basically BSing the Commanders right now, bro." He said this is absolutely not intentional grounding. So you even had guys like Josh Norris, draft analyst, not a Commanders fan, reporter, social media content creator, nothing, like completely neutral people. ML Football against Skip Bayless, everybody was screaming, "Yo, the Commanders are getting cheated right now." And ultimately, from those random phantom play, random ref calls that they made up out of nowhere, with the false start on Terry, the intentional grounding that wasn't on Marcus Mariota, that cost us 20 seconds in clutch time, bro. That was ugly. Then later on, Deebo Samuel got hip drop tackle. That wasn't called. That was insane. And then shouts out to Commanders Wire. He said Denver's 9-2, Washington's 3-8. NFL is ensuring Denver keeps winning. Only explanation for the non-tripping call, for the false start that wasn't, the grounding that wasn't, all of that type of stuff. And that's a good point. It's just kind of one of those things. We're the little brother of the NFL right now because of how our season is gone. Again, I blame injuries more than anything else. And it seems like that's why we were getting calls placed against us. I feel like literally Vegas made a call like, "Hey, refs, win this game for the Broncos, however you got to do it." And I'm even surprised that they actually called that pass interference on Talanoa Hufanga on Jeremy McNichols on that overtime 4th and 6 right there. I was surprised, but he tackled him so early, the refs literally had to call that. You couldn't BS that one, bro. I mean, it literally took for our receiver to get tackled 2 seconds before the ball got there for us to finally get a call, bro. It was crazy. But also, now my overall thoughts and takeaways from that game, man. Well, first of all, insane effort and pride shown by the Commanders versus a team that was 9-2 coming into this game, bro. I keep telling y'all, injuries killed this season. And even if we were just average NFL hurt, because I know people keep saying you can't blame injuries on a season. Everybody has injuries. No, I don't think y'all understand. I gotta go get the stats for y'all because I was working on a video literally to dive into this, bro. We are the most hurt team in the NFL. We are one of the most hurt teams in NFL history, bro. I don't think y'all understand. If we were just average NFL hurt, if we were just missing a handful of starters, a handful of backups, cool. We could have still even smoked these boys by double digits if we had Jaden and at least a couple of more starters. But we are the literal most hurt team in the NFL, one of the most hurt teams in NFL history, bro. I don't think y'all understand it. I got to go get the research. I should have had it ready for this video, but I'm still working on that video right now to do a full dive into how injuries literally killed this season and why we should be optimistic going into next year as long as we just have an average season of injuries, bro. But this was the perfect game result to me. It was very entertaining. That's That's why we watch. It was very competitive. That gives us hope for next season. And don't forget, Jeffrey Simmons wanted to be traded to the Commanders before the trade deadline. That shows that even players around the elite Pro Bowl level players around the NFL still view the Commanders as a true contender in 2026. This fan base is more pessimistic and more down on the Commanders' future out of any other demographic, honestly. I have other fan bases saying, yo, injuries got y'all this year, bro. Y'all will be straight next year as long as y'all stay even relatively healthy, like I've been saying. And again, an elite defensive tackle like Jeffrey Simmons wanted to join the Commanders before the trade deadline when our season was already going downhill, bro. So that just shows you everything you need to know. And then on top of that, third, we secured a higher draft pick. We went from the 7th pick to the 8th. If you win, you probably ended up with the 12th, a pick between 12 and 15, bro. So that was the perfect result, in my opinion, bro. Though you take pride with you forward, you take hope, belief with you forward. We were competitive. Most importantly, we were entertaining. That's the reason we love and watch the sport. And then also you secured a higher draft pick. So now, on the night where Washington got healthier and took the AFC's #1 seed to the brink and should have won the game, the Commanders also climbed to the #6 spot in the NFL draft order. That was a win-win, bro. The only teams ahead of us right now are Cleveland. They're bound to win another game the way they've been playing. But honestly, with the way we're playing right now, the way we played against the Broncos, we're bound to win another game. And when you play the way you played against the Denver Broncos, against the Vikings and the Giants, you probably win both of those games. We'll see. But either way, as of today, we have the 6th pick. Only teams ahead of us are the Cleveland Browns, Las Vegas Raiders, New York Giants, who we play, New Orleans Saints, and the Tennessee Titans, bro. So we'll see how it goes. And then Jay Daniels, MVP, found out that technically Washington still has a chance to mathematically make the playoffs. Per Joe NFL, this is all needed to happen this week. Washington lose versus Denver, plus Philly and Chicago game ends in a tie, plus Green Bay win, plus Seattle win tie. But Eagles lost to the Bears, which keeps Washington alive. So technically, statistically, we are still alive if you win literally every game for the rest of the season, and a lot of other things have to go right for us. Highly unlikely, but just wanted to let y'all know that for those of y'all that are still, your main goal is to make it to the playoffs and compete and things like that. You never know. You just maybe able to convince yourself, I want the higher draft pick, but I get why other people are feeling the other way. Now, other people's thoughts and reviews before we get up out of here, and I agree with a lot of these. Shouts out to my boy Serge the Shooter. He said, just be competitive. That's a start. Got tired of being uninterested in games by the end of the first quarter. That was depressing. I completely agree. Again, that was the perfect game, perfect result. That for me. And for me, that wants a higher draft pick, I want to see some hope for next year. That was as great of a game as it could be. Terry McLaurin deserves some respect, redemption. Offensive line looked great. It's kind of one of those situations, too, like just imagine if Jaden were at least healthy. Forget the defense. You can have your top 3 edge rushers gone, which will cripple any defense. The Broncos without their top 3 edge rushers are not the best defense in football. I want y'all to know that. That's how serious injuries can be, especially the injuries that we have. So forget all of the injuries. Your 2 starting corners out. Your top 3 edge rushers out. Literally keep that exact same team, but Jaden is your quarterback instead of Mariota. You win that game, bro. Shouts out to Sky Abraham. He said, I think that was the best game Washington has played all season. I agree, bro. Also, shouts out to DC Sports News 365. Terry had an amazing game. Ertz had an amazing game. Louisville had a pretty dang good game. Lots of positives to take from this one. I know losing sucks, but I'm really not even trying to sugarcoat anything. Coming that close to that good of a team right now shows our dogs were fighting. This team believes, bro. I just did a video talking a couple of days ago. I think it was yesterday or the day before that. I believe it was Saturday, where I talked about Dan Quinn giving the quote, how about we're losing on the wins and loss columns, but this is not a losing culture. He wanted to make that distinction, and that game against the Broncos literally showed what he meant, bro. We don't have a losing culture. We just happen to be losing games. Again, to me, injuries are the biggest. It's not even to me. No, straight up, injuries are the reason this season went the way that it did. Now, Grant Paulson said, I know there are no moral victories up here, as Joe Gibbs would say, but that was an entertaining game. The 3-9 Commanders gave the 10-2 Broncos all they can handle. Impressive, hard-fought effort from the Commanders out of their bye week. Entertaining product tonight. Dan Sleeper Commander said positives from tonight. Team showed an insane amount of grit. Terry looked like he's fully recovered. Defense held up well most of the game. And then, of course, the Traylon Burke catch. And then again, McNichols being wide open, tough ending right there. I mean, should have won the game. JP Finley said, say what you will, but Washington showed some real guts tonight, bro. We play with that same mentality, intensity, and effort next year. You can easily be right back into the NFC Championship game as long as you're at least semi-healthy, bro. And then Billy Tinkle said, I owe Nick Bonito my life. you know, if we end up with a top 5 pick. And that's a good point too. If we end up with a top 5 pick, shouts out to Nick Benito for batting down that ball. Also, Eric Selly said thoughts on tonight's loss versus Denver. A lot to digest from that one. The best total performance the team has had during the now 7-game losing streak. I agree. Mariota played about as well as you can from a backup. The pick was bad. A few other questionable decisions, but overall played good enough against the league's top defense to have a chance to win. I agree. Defensively, they built on the Miami performance. It's a clear upgrade with Dan Quinn as the play caller, but personnel, especially up front, isn't something they can overcome. I'm telling you, it's injuries. I completely agree. Terry McLaurin is just amazing. I don't get the crowd that thinks otherwise. The entire game changes when he's in. Even on a snap count, 796 and 1 touchdown. Should have had a lot more. I completely agree with that. Traylon Burks with the catch of the year. He headlines the very short must resigns list. Completely agree. Maybe consider Zach Ertz a pure wide receiver next year if you want to bring him back. 10 catches isn't nothing, but you need a dominant, true all-around tight end. I 100% agree with that. I thought the corners played well for the most part. I agree. I don't get the Will Harris hype by the staff. Feels like he always gives up big plays. I think he's just that was the only one I pushed back against. I think he just needs time to get back, because before he got hurt, he was the only one that I feel like could have stopped Brock Bowers from getting that touchdown against the Raiders. Since he got hurt, we've been giving up a lot of big plays to tight ends. I think he's still not 100%. I think he was just good enough to play. I think Will Harris back 100% and back into the full swing of things. I think he can be one of our better starting safeties again. And he said, I'm not one to complain about officiating a lot, but that was maybe the worst I've ever seen. Even NBC's on-air official was in disbelief with a number of the calls. Again, we had to address that. 3-9, the season ended 2 months ago, but they are officially a losing team the year after winning 2 playoff games. Maybe Jaden is back next week. Interesting points. Also, George Carmi said takeaways from this game. Injuries truly hampered the season. I still don't understand how any of y'all feel like that's not a valuable excuse. McLaurin operates at a different level than our other wide receivers. Will Harris provided stability on the back end. I agree with all of that. I know he gave up a couple of plays, but I think you'll see over time Will Harris is a guy that we should be a part of the secondary moving forward. Quinn was too loyal to a friend. Current scheme zone heavy better suits our defensive talent. It's working. Zone right now. I know we complain about zone, but zone is working right now. Mariota is a decent backup, but Daniels is clearly missed. I agree. Team needs edge help, coverage linebacker, and 1 or 2 more playmakers on offense. Hey, we could do something. I completely agree. Linnell Willingham, he said, Commanders showed major guts and OT loss to Denver. Run defense, Payne, Kinlaw, Eddie Goldman, stock up. Terry, stock up. Offensive line, stock up. Completely agree with all of that. And he had a whole 2-minute video breaking all of that down and stuff like that. And then lastly, before we get up out of here, somehow Washington is favored by 1.5 points next Sunday at Minnesota. But I understand, though, the way that we played against the Broncos, the way the Vikings have been playing lately, I can understand why we're the favorite team even on the road. And who knows, maybe even Jaden Daniels comes back. We'll see. But either way, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know if you about everything discussed video. Please farm that like button, farm the subscription button, farm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time. At least informative and opinion videos just like this one. I didn't expect this video to run so long. But either way, I really appreciate y'all for making it this far in the video. Again, I always shout y'all out, man. Shouts out to my Watch to the End gang, man. I'm 1 minute and 11 seconds into recording this video. If you made it this far, you're still watching me and hearing me, you are the GOAT. I salute you and appreciate you personally, for real, man. Make sure you leave a like on the way out. Shouts out to my Noti gang that are on these videos immediately. Shouts out to my late night crew that's going to be watching this late tonight, because right now it's 8:45 p.m. By the time I get this out to y'all, it's going to be like 9:30, 10 p.m. by the time I'm done editing and all that. But really appreciate y'all. Let me know in the comment section if you agree or disagree with any of my points. Let me know how you felt about the game, any additional points that I didn't bring up. Really appreciate y'all. I'm going to catch y'all later. I'm out.